America needs a second political party, but Michigan already has one. Welcome back, everybody. This is James Dixon. Welcome back, everybody. This is James David Dixon. I'm the host of the James Dixon podcast. As always, we're here for a good time, not a long time. If you follow Michigan politics, the most important race we got right now is happening in Saginaw Bay. This is the one we've all been waiting for. This is the 35th District Special Senate election going to be held on Tuesday, May 5th. This election pits attorney Jason Tunney, a Republican, against Chedrick Green, a Democrat and a firefighter. Since January 2025, the 35th District has been without a senator in Lansing. That means the people of Saginaw Bay went an entire budget cycle without representation in the Michigan Senate. That's about 270,000 people in the Midland, Saginaw, Bay City area did not have a senator to speak for them at a time an $80 billion budget was being decided. In early American history, they called this taxation without representation, and that actually led to the American Revolution. What we're looking to see is the Saginaw Revolution this year. It took Governor Gretchen Whitmer more than 200 days to call a special election in the 35th, and when she did call it, she kicked it out to May 2026, when the senator would only get to serve a few months before the November election. In Whitmer's first term in office, she signed 1,000 laws with the Republicans. So that's 4 years with Republicans controlling both the Michigan House and the Michigan Senate, and somehow a Democrat governor is able to sign 1,000 laws. Now, if all you read was the Detroit newspapers, you would think back then and even now that Whitmer and the Republicans didn't get along. There was plenty of chum thrown out there to throw normies off the scent and avoid the obvious reality in Lansing, which is that it's one big party up there, and the 10 million people of Michigan were never invited. So right now, with the 35th District special election coming up, you should be asking why. It's obvious why the governor waited to call a special election, out of fear that a Republican would win the seat. But if Whitmer and the Republicans signed 1,000 laws together in her first term, why then would she fear another Republican? Gretchen Whitmer ran herself as someone with a demonstrated history of working across the aisle, and that continued in her first term. What changed between 2019 and 2025 where she felt the need to hold things off so long? What changed is the Michigan Republican itself, and how they've changed is a good sign for the future, given that we have the election, I call it the ultimate battle for Michigan, up for grabs in November. We got 4 statewide seats available. We got governor, we got attorney general, we got secretary of state, and we have U.S. Senate. In addition to that, you have the entire Michigan House, that's 110 seats, the entire Michigan Senate, 38 seats, and the entire U.S. House from Michigan, 13 seats. The media might have told you that 2026 is some kind of midterm election, but from where I sit, it looks a hell of a lot more like a final exam in Michigan. And so how things have changed in just a few years, I think, is a good sign going into that final exam. Let's just look at where we were a few years ago. So going into the 2022 election, the Lansing Republicans, who held the House and the Senate, were a Gretchen Whitmer fan club. They thought they had this kind of unspoken, tacit arrangement with Gretchen Whitmer wherein we're not going to go too hard to replace you, and we're just going to keep things the way they are. If and when you get reelected, because Michigan almost always reelects its incumbents, we're going to keep working together. We're going to keep sharing power the way we have when you were able to sign 1,000 laws in just 4 years. But it turns out Gretchen Whitmer was not party to any deal. The Republicans were good little puppies. They never came out hard to replace the governor, but the governor was working to replace them. Not only did she win re-election, she won it by such a margin that Democrats won the House and Senate with her. And so for the first time in 40 years, Democrats went into 2023 holding all the gavels in Lansing. You know what the Republicans did then? On their way out between losing power that was amassed over decades and actually having Democrats take over, you know what one of their final acts was? They gave Whitmer $85 billion in tax money for a train set, the Q line, the 3-mile train from nowhere in Detroit to nowhere in Detroit on Woodward Avenue. So in her first term, let's just to recap, in her first term, Whitmer was up against the Republicans for Whitmer. It wasn't much of a fight, really, outside of the news pages. They worked so well together that the Republicans gave her a golden train set on her way out. When you look at how Republicans used their power Whitmer's first term, it's no wonder why Republicans lost in 2022. So imagine being a Republican voter in Michigan. You see your budget going up every year. You don't see any clear benefits from it. You see a Democrat governor shred the Constitution during COVID, and the Republicans do nothing for many, many months. Republicans held the House and the Senate back then. If there was ever a time for the checks and balances that we've heard of, that Schoolhouse Rock told us about, if ever there was a time for checks and balances to apply, like you learned it would happen in civics, it was during COVID, and it was against Whitmer. And the Republicans failed. They didn't do it. And so because the Republicans didn't show up for the people of Michigan, in 2022, the people of Michigan didn't show up for them. But the loss in 2022 might have been a blessing in disguise, because that loss broke a mentality in Lansing that Michigan is somehow fundamentally or congenitally a red state. So red that Republicans could afford to reach across the aisle. It reminded Republicans who survived that at the end of the day, politics is blood sport. Politics is show wins, not show friends. And so with that election, you saw a lot of Republicans leave. It was the end of their term. And with them died the Republicans for Whitmer. The Republicans who came in 2024, they showed up ready to fight and wanting to fight, especially the ones who won in 2022. So imagine you're a freshman, it's 2023, and Democrats are holding all the gavels for the first time in 40 years. You know, you tell a kid if he scores a touchdown and he's celebrating a little too much, you tell him act like you've been there before, right? Well, the Democrats hadn't been there before, and they acted that way. And so there's a whole freshman class of Republicans who came in, and they were disrespected by Democrats who did not know how to be gracious with their power. Those are the kind of memories that hold, and they hold to this day years later. So America, absolutely, we need a second party, but in Michigan, we already have one, because our Republicans now understand that politics is a fight for power, and they act that way. So that's why May 5th is so important, and that's also why this election is being held on May 5th, 2026, rather than November 2025, as it could have and should have been. I say all that to say this is not your older brother's Republican Party in Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer understands this. It's why she took so long to call the special election. It's why she put that special election so far into the new year. Gretchen Whitmer understands this, but do you? Have you updated your mental models? Do you understand that the days of betrayal are over? Do you understand that most of the Republicans who are in Lansing right now, and especially this new crop that's looking to join them, are not eager to make a deal with Big Gretch? So whether or not Jason Tunney wins his race against Chedrick Green, things have changed in Lansing, because we now have two parties who have recent experience in the wilderness that is called the minority. The things that are said and the things that are done to the minority party when they don't have power are not soon forgotten. I was at a fundraiser recently where former Senate Majority Leader Randy Richardville was there. He talked about one time back when he was running things in the Senate, there was 26 Republicans and only 12 Democrats. And since the elevator in that part of the Capitol could hold 12 people, Richardville told Whitmer that if they want to hold their caucus meetings in the elevator, that would be fine. Now, the two of them are friends, and it was a joke, but it's one of those jokes that reflects truth. It's one of those jokes that sticks with you. It's one of those things that makes you say, boy, when I get a chance, I'd like to stick it to them. And that's exactly what the Democrats did. How they handled their time in the sun, at least at the beginning, when they were doing things like repealing right to work. They were acting like people who were trying to erase 40 years of history. But by the end of it, the Democrats couldn't even get along with each other. They could have done so much more damage to Michigan had they been able to share power, and we do your thing today and my thing tomorrow, but everyone gets their thing done at the end. And so because the Democrats did so poorly with power, 2024, the Michigan House was the only legislative body in America to flip Republican. And those Republicans proved to be a new breed. In 2025, Gretchen Whitmer signed only 74 bills into law. That's a modern low, and it reflects the new era of politics in Lansing, wherein the Republicans that you send to represent you are no longer the Republicans for Whitmer. Look, I wish the congressional Republicans in Washington would pass the Save America Act and would send it to President Donald Trump's desk. Our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, and her Democrat counterparts across America have allowed non-citizens to vote, have opened every possible door to voter fraud, and what they fear in the Save America Act is that it would shut the door tight by requiring proof of citizenship, proof that they go out of their way to not ask. But the slogan of this podcast is make politics local again. It's that for a reason, and that reason is because state and local governments control most of the power. It's because state and local elections are when our votes count the most and weigh the most because most people don't show up. Across America, Republicans are represented by people who forgot and even disdain the people who gave them their power. Republicans who think of politics as a social club, who don't want to press too hard against their bridge partners. So America needs a second party, but in Michigan we already have one. Make politics local again. Tell Michigan stories. Tell the stories of what's been done to Michigan and who did it. Talk about Gretchen Whitmer spending $9 billion surplus in 1 year in 2023 and how we have no benefit from it. Talk about Jocelyn Benson welcoming illegals into the voting booth in Michigan and doing nothing to stop it, even after the problem was known. Talk about Mike Duggan presenting himself as some kind of guru of education when it comes to 1 million students in Michigan, but wanting nothing to do with the 50,000 kids in Detroit when he was mayor. If you talk about Michigan and the facts on the ground here, the case for change is obvious. If Democrats were to run Michigan for 16 years, there wouldn't be a year 17. So someday we can talk about national politics and how to bring an America First movement to Congress. But if you want to win 2026, your best bet is make politics local again. America might need a second party, but in Michigan we already have one. The question now is, are you going to show up and support them?